Welcome to the Living Quadratus and welcome to our table. We've got two wishes for our time together today, and the first one is let's make this a free and safe space, like a table of true friendship, like you're sitting around our table with us. And this podcast is for everyone, whether whatever identity you have, where you are, where you're coming from, however you are today, you're welcome and you belong here.
And this living practice of Quadratus really is a help for us to uncover an inner freedom and an inner authenticity that in Western Christian tradition has seemingly not been taught or almost hidden for a long time. So we want this practice of Quadratus to be a vital support for all of us to have a loving, vital, creative life.
I'm Bronwyn Thorogood and I am coming to you from Newcastle, Australia, and I'm joining you from a Wabikal land. I'm a Quadratus practitioner, and with me is our co-host, Alexander John Shire, who is the author and founder of Quadratus, joining us from the Camino and the ancient Celtic lands of northwest Spain. So again, welcome to this table of friendship. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Bron, and thanks to everyone who's joining us. Bron, I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, there you are in Australia in summer, and here I am in Spain, huddled on a very cold, wet day, very much in winter. But here we are together through this miracle of online presence.
Yes, indeed.
And to be transparent for everyone, both Bron and I are devout Christians in somewhat of a mystical Christian tradition. But we are seeking to live an inclusive, compassionate, and wise life. And we really invite you to be with us. Be with us in your questions and in your searching. Hear what we have to share and join us truly as you are. So, Bron, would you lead us in a brief meditation? Let me strike the gong and
Yeah,
just
I'd love.
help us all be here now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm mindful that as you're listening to this podcast, you may be driving, you might be hanging the washing on the line or shoveling snow. But whatever you are doing, just let's take this moment to pause. Pause your feet. Pause your hands. And if you're able, maybe you might like to allow your eyes just to close softly and take a journey inwards. We'll take 3 deep breaths together where we inhale slowly through the nose to the count of 3, and we'll exhale slowly through the nose to the count of 3. And we'll do that together as a symbol that we're all connected, no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing. Just this moment to breathe together. So breathing in, 2, 3, exhaling, 2, 3. Another breath in, 2, 3, and exhale completely, releasing any tension you've carried into this space. One more breath, breathing in, 2, 3, and as you exhale, feel yourself arriving more fully here. As you feel your breath just return to its normal rhythm, just notice the difference that those slow, deep breaths can make, how it can help you focus, how it can help you just know that you're not alone, that you're actually sitting at a table with thousands of other people. One more breath in, breathing in deeply to the belly. Slowly exhale. And as you're ready, if you have had your eyes downcast or closed, allow them to come back and open and come back into this space ready to join us. Thank you, Alexander John. Alexander John, how good was it last time with Jana?
It was great. Jana is another Quadratos practitioner, and she's about to start something that we're calling an extended book study that moves through my book, Heart and Mind, which is really the four gospel journey of transformation. And I was so inspired to hear the breadth of all of her inner work that she's done, from Christian mysticism to Buddhism to
I
Mahayana
know.
Buddhism and
So
Native American
incredible to hear that
traditions. Yeah.
history. Yeah, so much. What a great thing that Jana actually found Quadratus and was able to bring all of that into this space. What a blessing for everyone. I think
And
it's been a blessing for her, though, from when I listened to her.
yeah, yeah. And really excited to have her opening up this new endeavor for us, which we know will reach a large number of people that we have not been able to of late.
Yeah. How do people register for that again?
If you go to the Quadratus website, Quadratus, Quad, Quad, Ra, RATOS.org, on the homepage, you'll see tabs to open up our learning communities.
When does she start it? It's not started yet, has it?
It starts on the 24th of February.
Okay.
And
So
again,
everyone's got
it's
time.
online.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, there also is a time converter with all the information so that you will know what time it is in your time zone, wherever in the world you are.
Yeah. Now, I would
And
highly recommend it if you wanted to join a group. There's actually a couple of 11-week journey programs going too that are starting, one starting in February and another one in May. I was just looking at them for Australian audiences today, and they're in a really good time for Australians to participate as well.
right, so we actually had one that started last week with Rob,
Yeah.
and we have another one starting in a couple of weeks with
Yeah.
Jenelise.
Yeah.
And again, those are like 11-week processes as opposed to the extended book study, which is an ongoing process that probably will go most of this year.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. So I would definitely be recommending that people, zip over to the Quadratus website and have a look at what's available in these programs, so that you can just learn a little bit more about what Quadratus is teaching. And you won't regret it, because it just opens up something within your heart that that if you have been walking that Christian journey for many years, such as I was, to finally come to Quadratus and hear the way that the four Gospels fit into our everyday path and teach us how to live, is just heart opening, mind opening, and builds a community both within you and external to you. It's well worth your effort to go and have a look.
And right down below in the quote unquote the show notes are links. So you don't even have to remember these links. Just look below and you'll see the
Yeah.
links, and you'll be able to find all of these resources. And the thing that, of course, for me, I think also for you, Bron, the Four Gospel Journey is this incredible wise map. But the map is universal. And of course, for me, the Gospels are my primary way to read the map. But every great tradition knows this map.
Yeah.
And it's so important right now as we're in these difficult times to know that the difficult times are a very definite point on the map. And the map lets us know how we got here, and it also lets us know what comes next, which is something quite radiant. So take heart. These difficult days will not last forever. And where they are leading us is something quite beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, just this week past, the Heart and Mind Circle that I convene, we started Guide 3, which is our journey on the third path. And it's actually like the first guide is the first gathering that we have. We just go over all the practices, all the promises, all the commitments that we make, the Pilgrim's Agreement, in freedom and safety, what does that mean? Welcoming the other, what does that mean? Which are vital practices for this third path. But there was just a little poem that I read, just like one line poem by Matsuo Basho, but also it's like an old Aramaic saying as well. And it goes like this. It says, "Do not seek to follow in the footsteps of the ancients. Seek what they sought." And as soon as I read that, I thought, this is what Alexander John has done. You haven't just read I know you've read the theological papers and, studied all of that, but you went back to the ancient time and you've studied what was happening at that time when the Gospels were written. And I just thought, like, if you're open for this, I'd love just to get a little bit more about what took you there, and how did this whole, like, we're coming into Easter, and I know from the work that I've done in Quadratus with you previously, Easter through Quadratus is quite different to Easter that I have known. So anyway, they're big questions, and I just want to,
Well,
what do you got to say about that, Alexander John?
Well, I was stunned when you sent me that beautiful quote from, is it Basho from Japan?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Because I grew up with my grandparents giving me this, what I thought is an Arabic proverb, which was, do not seek to know what the ancients knew, seek their source. And that's always been a proverb that I've tried to follow in my life. So one of the things when I look at the history, especially the first centuries of Christianity, what I know is they were responding to a felt need of the people. And that felt need was not, tell me Jesus' story. The felt need was, what of the wisdom of Christ, the wisdom of the Christos, as we see in Jesus, what is that telling me about how to live right now? So here's what was going on, and this whole thing about quote unquote Lent, this doesn't begin in Christian tradition until the end of the second century and the beginning of the third century. So, really, almost 200 years of Christianity did not have quote unquote Lent. What was
Can
happening?
I just say, I just find that extraordinary, though, that for the first 200 years, and then suddenly something happens
Right.
to change that.
Yeah. And here's the best that I've been able to figure out, and it it really takes sort of a sociological look at the Mediterranean world at the end of the second century and what was happening within the Christian communities all over the Mediterranean. Well, when I say that, we're really talking about they're all over the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire and these early Christian communities are in conflict. The Roman Empire did not want the value system of these early Christian communities to live because we were saying to everyone, it doesn't matter who your mother was, it doesn't matter your bloodline, everybody is brother and sister to each other. Well,
That's so in contrast to what the
yeah.
Romans were throwing down at people.
Yeah, because what we don't realize enough is that the Roman Empire had a caste system that was more rigid than what we think of as the Indian caste system.
Yeah.
So in Rome, you had the senators and the wealthy families of Rome who were like gods and goddesses. They were at the top, and whatever they wanted was what would happen. If they wanted to take your spouse, if they wanted to kill you, if they wanted to enslave you, whatever they wished. And then going down the line at the bottom, we have quote unquote the slaves who at this point in time were considered less than human and that they could be treated, imprisoned, used for any work they wanted without regard. So Christianity coming along as this first tradition that we have on record that opened the doors to everyone without regard to your wealth, your poverty, whether you were free or a slave, no matter where you were born, no matter your gender, everyone was welcome to come and to sit side by side. This is unheard of at this moment in time because even in our great mother tradition, Judaism, at this point in Judaism, men were up front and women were oftentimes behind a curtain, or men were on the floor of the synagogue and women were up in the balcony where they couldn't be seen.
So is this why the Bible is written in that vein that it's like that it looks like women are sort of separate to men?
Yes, and I can't say at this point that in early Christianity that we were totally egalitarian,
Yeah.
but we were on the way. And we had definitely raised the status and the role of women with us higher than any other known place in the Roman Empire. And this was revolutionary. But it was also revolutionary for us to say, well, if you were born in France, or if you were born in India, or if you were born in North Africa, we're brother and sister. This was not the general rule on the planet in those days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even in Buddhism at this point, the Buddhist communities were divided by ethnic diversity. That the people from one village would be in their sangha and they didn't really want to share their sangha with people who were not from that village. So what was happening in early Christianity was a new step of the human family. Now, we get to the end of the second century, and what's beginning to happen? Well, throughout much of the second century, there had been severe persecution of Christians, legal laws against our being Christian. At times, we were arrested and executed for being Christian. One of the things that you could not do openly is travel as a Christian. And so people had to be very guarded about what they carried. So no
What do you
one,
mean?
well, if someone was found to be carrying a Christian text or a Christian letter,
Yeah.
that would mean certain jailing and possibly execution. So the ability for Christian community to communicate with each other
Yeah.
was very hard.
Yeah. How did they do it?
Well, they largely did not. And so we
But
have
that's,
this long period, well, we have 100 years here where the Christian communities are all developing on their own. And they're developing things very differently. Well, towards the end of the second century, some of the persecution begins to lift, and the Christian communities begin to be able to more freely talk with each other. Well, when we talk, it's like we start out with, we're curious. What are you doing? When you gather on Sundays, what do you do? When you initiate somebody, how do you do that? And what do you believe about Jesus? Well, what started out with tremendous curiosity very quickly became sort of an argument
yes.
and then became a fierce debate.
Yeah.
Can you imagine Christians arguing with each other?
No, look, it's thank goodness we're in 2026 because of course that doesn't happen now. We all agree with everything.
Absolutely.
Right.
Please
You know,
hear
we've
our humor.
evolved now. We've evolved.
So, what, in an informal way, what these early Christian communities decided to do was they said, okay, this level of disagreement that we're having is hurting our felt sense of being one. That
Yeah, absolutely.
we have never wanted a oneness that meant a dogmatic unity, but we wanted a felt sense of oneness even in the midst of great diversity. That at table, it didn't matter male or female, it didn't matter where your mother was born, it didn't matter your bloodline, and in large degree, it didn't matter what you were thinking. There was a felt sense of all of us as brother and sister, having come from the one source.
And were the Gospels around then?
Not in a formal sense.
Okay.
They were around, but
Yeah.
we're still a good 100 to 150 years before the four are formally named.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But in this time when there was great concern about how we were beginning to pull at the threads of our unity, Christianity did something I think which is so instructive for us. It didn't set up a class. It didn't say,
Yeah.
now we're going to study a text. It didn't say, we're going to have somebody who's going to give us a series of cognitive sermons about what we have to believe. It said, we're going to come together. We're going to celebrate the one love that has birthed us all.
Yeah.
And then we're going to pray and we're going to fast and we're going to, in some ways, tithe, all as a body expression of our desire to be healed of those small little things that are separating us.
Is
So,
that something that they did weekly?
well, no, because what I love about how this all got started was essentially the church said, church, that's really too large a formal word, um, this loose communion of communities developed something that was a 3 day retreat,
Yeah.
72 hours. And it appears that for most of the communities, these 72 hours were spent somewhat together. I can imagine that the sacred space, everybody sort of brought their bedroll, um, and uh, we would have these times of being together. We would be praying one of the great stories of Jesus from the Gospels, and we would be meditating on it, and we would be saying our prayers about how we wanted to come back together in more union.
Yeah.
I can imagine people might have been drawing. Um,
Yeah.
Very much in these days, people would have been sharing their nightly dreams with each other, realizing that very much in the tradition of these days, that one person in the community might have had a dream that would have been a big dream for the whole community. And so they would be working not on a cognitive lesson. And I just keep coming back to that, but because this is not like we're all going to go study something, but it's more we're going to come together and live with each other in prayer. And we're not going to eat very much because we want our stomachs to be helping us pray for this greater union. That when our stomach would grumble a little bit, we would say, the same way that our stomachs want food, we want
Yes.
to be more one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible, how the power of just not necessarily being told what to think and what to do, but being given the gift of a word, of a poem, and being able to absorb it
Right.
and sit with it and sit with one another and have time to really digest that
Right.
and just see what comes up.
But the first moment of this gathering, now most of us, when we think of Lent, we think of ashes. And
Yeah,
and we're going to
absolutely.
talk about that in a minute, but ashes started in the 5th, 6th century. We're talking 2nd century, which there's nothing about
Oh,
ash.
okay.
What happened at the very beginning is something called the ritual or the rite, R-I-T-E, of
Yeah.
election. Now, often when we hear that word, we might think of some sense of privilege or in group and out group. No,
100.
this word election is the belief that in each of our conception, the Holy One elected us as son and daughter. And so we came together celebrating that voice of love that gave birth to us. That's what the rite of election is about. It's a very beautiful, triumphant moment of we understand that each of us is an individual voice of love to be greater love for each other. That's
Did they?
why that's why we
Sorry.
come to these days of prayer and fasting in that way, and this yearning with our very bodies to be more one.
That's just incredible. And what comes into my mind as you say that is this question of, did they have to confess their sins at that time?
Um, Good question, because the there is a recognition that we're all on the road
Yeah.
and that we all in some ways have not been our best self this week, this month, this year. And so, yes, there's a request for each of us to understand what we have done this year that perhaps wasn't the highest expression of love.
Yeah.
But here's the beauty of that moment. And there was a prayer time when each person would individually be thinking of how they had been less than in that way. And then we together would chant, Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison, but not in the tonality that most of us are aware of. Because where does this beautiful Kyrie eleison and Christ, well, the Kyrie eleison, where does that come from? It's a Greek chant 300 years before Jesus.
Yeah, okay.
And Greek soldiers returning from battle triumphant. The people of the city would be waiting at the boundary of the city, hoping that they would hear the soldiers raise this triumphant cry as they return from battle. And in essence, Kyrie eleison means all praise to the king for the victory. Christians added that second line, all praise to the Christos, the Christe, for the victory. So in this moment that we would recognize our being less than, this was not a moment of being on our knees. It was not a moment of beating our breasts. It's not a moment where we're pleading for the great Holy One to forgive us. It's a recognition that the Holy One, God, the Christos, has already won the victory. And by the very fact that we recognize our weakness, we also know that we strengthen the Holy One's victory. So we give praise that in our weakness, we can draw together as even greater brother and sister.
It kind of changes everything, doesn't it?
It really
That
does.
perspective.
It really does. And you know, this whole the first 500 years of Christianity is not what we have focused on today, which is atonement, and we're far
Yeah,
away from God and we have to win our place
yeah.
back to God. Now, this moment is about theosis. And theosis says that each of us is born as an image of God, as an image of the Holy One, already in our conception. We are born as in the presence and the image of the Holy One. And then we will spend our whole lives gradually transforming into the fullness of that image. Hopefully that's what we will be about, is that we will gradually come not to only understand, but to be the image of the holy that each one is already meant to be. And that's not some likeness, that's not some cookie cutter. It was a recognition that our diversity, that our unique, that each one's uniqueness is also our very authenticity.
How incredible.
Yeah.
How incredible.
So this beautiful ritual of election has, for the most of Christianity today, been lost. And it's been supplanted by something much later that, in my mind, is not as beautiful. Although I understand people's real desire to be marked with ash,
Yeah.
it's a real embodiment that helps all of us understand that we're all on the road to the fullness of who God wishes us to be.
Yeah, yeah.
But the language that Christendom uses around the ash is, in my mind, off the mark. I think is the best way I can say that, because it's about remember how low you are, remember how perhaps far away you are. Remember you're going to die and you're going to stand before God as a judge. It's all intended in some ways to bring us to a point of fear. Whereas the rite of election was about raise yourself up to the beauty and the glory of who you are as a human, made in the image of the Holy One. Be on this road to be all you can be. So today I'm suggesting there is a beautiful way to use the ritual of ash.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I have seen you use ash, but you use it in a different way completely to that.
I do. And I was living in Seattle in the 1980s when, quote unquote, Mount St. Helens, the volcano, blew. And we were covered
Yeah.
in ash. And that ash went into everything. It's like you had to be very careful that the ash didn't get into the motor of your car. Um, and I remember that in the days right after that explosion, that the geologists and the naturists, everyone was so concerned because the forests had been decimated, the trees had been blown down, and everything was covered with this thick ash-like mud. And the belief was it would be generations upon generations before those forests would regenerate. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Discovered was that ash is some of the world's most potent nutrients. That ash was so fertile that within just mere decades, those forests had regrown.
Yeah.
And so what I think of now is there is a way that we can marry the ash with the rite of election, and we can be marked with ash with the prayer that we might receive the Holy One's nutrients and grace so that we might grow as well and as quickly as the way that physical ash helps the earth regenerate.
When I was going through my divorce, back in the 90s, I did this divorce recovery program, and their slogan was "Out of the ashes comes new life." And that was the encouragement that they gave all of us, was like, you might feel like your whole life is burnt down right now, but from the ash of the burnt life that you're experiencing comes new life,
Yeah,
new growth.
yeah, absolutely. Every symbol is called ambivalent. It has two sides to it. And I understand the grief when we stand with our life in ashes. But I also understand that right there in that ash are the nutrients of a new life that's waiting to be born.
100%. And also in Australia, there are some bushes that actually they need to have a bushfire go through them to get the intensity of the heat, so that some of the flora can regenerate.
Yeah. So I know that there's so much more for us to explore about Lent and Easter. And we'll do that in this podcast as we go through the next few weeks. But I'm thinking, as we sort of come to a close here, I'm thinking of the first practice of Quadratus.
Yeah.
And that first practice that we invite people to begin to practice
Yeah.
is to speak truth in love. And what I mean by this is that it's so easy today to want to speak truth. And we hear about speaking truth to power and but as a Christian, there's something different that we desire. And I think that this is true of all great traditions. And that is that we seek to speak the truth, but in no way to harm or demonize another.
Yes.
That early Christianity, even in the face of the Roman Empire jailing us and killing some of us,
Yeah.
we never spoke of the empire or the emperor in a evil or demonic way. We recognized that they too are a brother and a sister. And yes, we can have a severe disagreement with a brother and a sister. But that does not mean that we hate them or that we wish them well. We will speak truth to power, but with great love and respect.
One of the things that that we were talking about last week in our first gathering of Guide 3 was about welcoming the other, and that is where we're actually invited to see the other point of view, and it's not to agree and turn your mind towards that and do it and say that it like I'm going to agree with that, but it's to say it makes me feel uncomfortable. I may not agree with it, but I am still one with you.
Right.
I'm still with you.
Right.
And it's like it's one of the things in our circle that we have come to struggle most with. The deeper we go, the more profound that becomes, and especially in this day and age where where the world is so divided on so many issues, we could fight with everyone, but we have to sit at the table with them.
This is the key to this 72-hour retreat that early Christianity instituted. Don't give me a cognitive course. Don't send me to psychologists to learn new language skills. Not saying any of that's perhaps good at another time. But in essence, this retreat was, give me the grace to want to grow, to hear the other with love. It's an interior attitude and perspective that we need to be deeply inspired and reminded of at least once a year, which was the reason for this retreat that eventually came to be called, quote unquote, Lent.
Okay, so the 72 hours, is that Lent? Is that what came?
That was the original Lent, was 72 hours.
So Lent wasn't something that you went without, because that's what Lent is now. Like that's what we, like you go without food or you go without meat or, but it's not that. It's the 72 hours of being together in community.
It could be. I mean, that doing without is intended to help us feel in our body.
Okay. Yeah.
That desire, as our bodies are wanting something, we know that our spirits are wanting more union. Okay. And we make that our prayer. But it's not, I'm going to mortify myself. I'm going to think less of myself because I'm a sinner. No, it's more, I want to use what my body is aching for to remind me how much more of what my spirit is also aching for.
I'm just also curious around that 72 hours, but don't we have like 40 days of Lent?
We do, and that's we'll talk about that in another
Okay.
podcast because I know
We'll just get
we're
taken
getting
away then.
well we're it's really interesting how all of this came to be. And I also, just before we close here, I want to say the reason for the season is not quote unquote Easter. It's the last day of the season, which is Pentecost, which is our sense of community has been re-inspired, reknit, and in that way reborn. So
And when does Easter fit into these? So Easter is the last day, did you say, of the
no,
72 hours?
Easter's
Nothing.
in the middle.
All
We
right.
have Lent, we have Easter in the middle, and the end of
Yeah.
the season is the Feast of Pentecost.
Okay.
And today, that's 100 days.
All
And
right.
we'll talk more about that in a coming
Yeah.
podcast. And please, right now, people, everyone that's listening, write your questions and your
Yeah.
comments for us. We really want to know what you're thinking and what you're feeling. Agree with us,
Yeah.
disagree with us. Let's all speak our differences, but in love.
And also, I think that if anything has created curiosity in what Alexander John has been saying, like it's there's so much. I'm so curious always about these things that have come from the ancients, which is where we started. So this is why it's so important to not to follow in their footsteps, but to seek
Right,
what they sought from their source,
right.
which is what we've talked about today.
And for our earliest ancestors, their source was the font of love that saw everyone and everything in the cosmos as brother and sister. That's where we start from.
That's what I'm going to take with me. Is that exact thing that's who we are. We're just one with everyone in the cosmos, and it all comes from love.
Beautiful.
What
So,
are you
Rod,
taking?
well, I love the phrase for me. I think of it often that it's love that calls us to be greater love.
Beautiful.
So, please share this podcast. Please let's get this message out to so many people who today need the inspiration of love. And keep joining us. Keep sending those comments. Like
Yeah.
us, rate us.
Yes. Yes, that'd be great if you could do that. And we'll be back in the next couple of weeks, and we'll continue this conversation. And yeah, there's just so much for us to unpack in amongst all about where all of our traditions have originated from, because that's what Quadratos is all about. And so thank you for joining us, everyone. Thanks for being at our table. It's been beautiful to have you. Please let us know you've been here so that we can send out a big hello to you.
Go well.
Blessings.